So other dimensions would have to exist if that was the case, because if you're thinking about other dimensions, you're talking about like a different position it would be a part of. So if we were to think the fourth dimension exists on a much larger scale, and I mean, even for us, we wouldn't be able to perceive it right away because, well, first of all, it's way out there compared to where our current location is. And let alone, how would we be able to perceive it if it's far more powerful than it really is? So, and it's kind of interesting because when you really think about it, it kind of makes a lot of sense, because it's kind of like how we perceive the universe. Like if we were to leave this planet and break this planet's orbit, you would be surprised that even in outer space, like the physics are completely different than here on Earth. Versus, time feels different, and then it seems like there's like this elusive effect in the atmosphere where, like, because of like radiation levels and whatnot, you would be surprised that it might actually like put you off a little bit. Like you wouldn't feel the same in space as you would on this planet, because the perception of reality, again, like Albert Einstein once stated that, you start changing like mathematics, you're going to get different results. And theory of relativity, even though it's a fact now, has proven that dimensions all work in different ways, and because their physics would be completely different, even cosmologists would agree that another dimension would be far more powerful, and we would underestimate what it really is. So we really wouldn't be asking just what it is, but how could we fully understand it if we can't perceive it itself? Again, another good example could be like the way we look at the universe, dark matter, dark flow, dark energy, three of the most common things in the universe. However, there's people that still debate that they might not even exist because we can't really see it, because we're so used to like how we identify things is through color of our, like the way the light touches our eyes, the photons. But if you can't see something, but it's there though, what is it really then? So it's proof that it's invisible. It's proof that it's, something else, but it really does make you wonder even more, what is it then? Okay. So we do it like the same, we would talk about like the fourth dimension being, probably beyond this planet. Now, assuming that, it's not going to work in the sense that one universe could have like multiple dimensions all across its, infinite void. It's very possible that it could really go both ways. It depends on if the one universe we live in has multiple layers of 3 dimensions, or if it's infinite in the sense that it eventually touches into another universe, or not borderline into another universe, but this universe would be infinite, and because of all its energy and mass would still exist on the third dimension. But like if you went to a certain depth, let's say, it would probably jump into another dimension. Basically, the premise is, and the theory goes, that the further out you go, the more powerful things become, the more disoriented things become, and because, you're not really used to this kind of thing, and the universe, again, like even leaving Earth, for example, is a good example. You're entering a different physics, different time period, rather, different dimensions, different types of acceleration, and trying to think of the right words. You have different radiation, different acceleration, and different reality, rather. Different electromagnetic radiation, I believe. But anyways, so if the fourth dimension really does work like that, then basically it would be, the way I'm looking at it, assuming that the universe itself is all, the third dimension, it would be like we would leave this universe, let's say, and then you could see like another universe from outside of it, and there's a parallel, and then there's the space in between, but then now you're like in an even more powerful universe, because basically it would be like combining like two, 3 dimensions together and drawing another big cube. You know what I mean? So if you really go on the internet and like just pull up Google Images, you'll see what I mean. Like how they perceive, like they add, like they connect the dots, or even look at the GIF files, for example, where you see like how like it kind of like bends and swirls at the same time, the fourth dimension. If that is how we really were to perceive it, it would be just like a box inside of another box that looks like another giant 3D, 4D box, So you're basically just adding another unit of measure onto an already existing. So if something was 5-dimensional and 6th dimensional and 7th dimensional. It's like different lines of connections, like a different connect the dots rather. And you know, if you're used to like the 3D tool designing, for example, where you're pulling up like blueprints and you can like orbit around them, you'd be surprised like how you could visualize it sort of like that, you know. So I would say if the 4th dimension isn't beyond just this galaxy, or let's say it does exist in this universe, you know, it would just be much further out. But where would it start to draw the line where everything starts becoming 4D and not necessarily just 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional, or first dimensional, or even 0 dimensions if such a thing exists? Because again, in cosmology, you know, even nothing is still something, just a much less volume. Well, then I think it's safe to say that that might actually be what it is. Because again, black holes, for the longest time, people have said that maybe they didn't even exist. But you know, you had these mathematicians that were submitting all these papers suggesting that, you know, wherever a black hole forms, it sucks everything up and then sends it to another dimension. You know, because we can't see what it is, because the gravity like vacuums everything into it, and including light particles can't escape it, but it still turns that energy into something else, and that radiation eventually gives birth to like another universe, because everything's all superheated, super concentrated. And even if you want to say like maybe there was a Big Bang somewhere, if you want to go by that, you know, maybe that's why our universe came into being. Maybe it was just coming out of a black hole of some kind, a singularity point rather, the God particle that they would call it. I wouldn't be surprised either way. I mean, there's just, you know, when you really start thinking about like how everything's made of energy and everything is, you know, recycled into something else, I mean, it's just proof that everything multiplies at some point, because it's either, you know, given mathematics, if you can have a 3rd dimension, you know, where's the 2nd and the 1st dimension? Not to mention, if there's other dimensions, there's so much more out there we can't see. And again, you know, mathematics has stated the further you go, the longer distance you have. And if that is true, which it is, then it only makes sense to where does the 4th dimension begin? Where does the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, all the way up until infinity? You know, maybe there's so many things that haven't even happened yet that we don't see, that a lot of people don't realize. And you see, and that's what's bizarre about life. It's not just the fact it could happen, it's how it happens that should scare people. Because I could go outside and look up at the sky and say, you know, it's a beautiful day out. But meanwhile, somewhere in the universe, there's something violent and mysterious happening. And we don't even see it for the most part. Maybe a supernova just happened and we just didn't see it yet, or hear it, or you know, or maybe there's a black hole sucking things up and creating another dimension and another universe. But what does that mean, though? Where does it lead to? How do you get there? And what's going to happen there? You know, where's the 4th dimension? And then where's the 5th? You know, and then if those dimensions exist, then how big are they compared to the 3rd dimension? You know, it's really interesting to think about. And how would we perceive the 3rd dimension or the 4th dimension if we saw it? You know, it would be very interesting. So maybe we wouldn't be able to really see its full potential and power. But it would be just a sign that mathematics has proven, and math is universal as well as language, that even as a communications person, you know, we'd have to really put that all together in a perspective. You know, what are we really looking at, and what are the unique physics and properties of said universe, 4th dimension or not, or even beyond, you know? Because again, like the old saying goes, if it can happen once, it can happen again. And what has happened will happen because it can happen. So it does make you wonder, though, you know. So again, you know, subscribe if you find this stuff interesting. If you know something that I don't know, please let me know, because I'd like to know more. What evidence do we have, aside from the things I've talked about possibly, that might suggest that there's another dimension out there?